in a really old-fashioned way, like I still see radio as like a real center point of a community. It's like this virtual meeting place, and it has been for like decades. I think that's like such a beautiful thing. Like imagine Australia without radio programs that drew our ideas and our conversations together. So I'm trying to take that to the next level by using all these different tools to kind of like just have a constantly flowing, robust meeting place of ideas and stories as well, and people sharing their stories and telling their tales. And that's an age-old human tradition of just wanting to sit down and listen and tell stories and share your human experience with people.
I notice there's also a lot of branding throughout the program.
Yeah, as in the stings and the production and stuff. Yeah,
Triple J, Triple J, Triple J. At least 6 to 8, maybe 10 times throughout the half hour. That's obviously something that you believe is a worthwhile thing to do in terms of maintaining your audience and brand recognition.
It's an aesthetic as well.
Because it's usually a musical interlude.
It's exactly, and they're punctuation points, and they have little drum beats and little grabs and little highly produced stings that just are little breakers. They're like they're literally like punctuation. They're full stops and commas, and
again to keep
hyphens.
the pace of the program
and to
going.
and to direct the ideas, and it's a way of going full stop. Then when I play that sting and I come off the back and go, and you just move on to the next thing. So they're ways of just like directing the flow of ideas in a way that sounds really interesting on the ear.
How is the program actually formulated? Do you go through the process of editorial meetings every day in the morning with your reporters, discussing stories and then discussing how you're going to give it your own unique treatment?
That's exactly what we do. We all get in about 9 and we read around, read the papers, see what's happening online, and also have a think about other things we've been chasing. We come to a 10 o'clock meeting every day. There's me, the producer, and the Sydney reporter in a room here in Sydney, and we dial up a speakerphone and we get on a conference call out Melbourne, Canberra, and Brisbane reporters. So there's 6 of us chatting every day, and unfortunately sometimes those meetings go for an hour because everyone gets, all right, what do you think should be on the show today? What do you think should be on the show today? What are your ideas today? So we get all the today ideas, but then we also consider the longer form things like, well, there's only one good story we really want to do today. That's really a today time-sensitive story. We've got the back half of the show. You've been working on that thing about dodgy dieting celebrities, or you've been working on a story about the boat tragedy that happened in Europe last week and doing a deep analysis on that. Let's put that to wear in the second half of the show, and then then we'll go, all right, what's the way we want to pitch that to the audience? What's the question we want to ask them? So we come up with this like single central idea that is really the core to the pitch of that story and how we want to hit the audience. And then we'll go, all right, what do we want to do online today? Which of these stories that we're putting to air would make a great online piece? I reckon that one would really connect with the online audience. You can make the radio package. Stephen, if you could make the online piece, could you have that by 3 o'clock so that we can put that on the Facebook page and start getting reactions? And then I'll have the reactions from the Facebook post to put onto the radio show. So sometimes I'll come on the radio and go, today we're talking about like the ice epidemic in Australia, and people are already going off on the Facebook page about it. John said this, Bell said that. What do you think? We'll come to that later. First, the Bali tour on death row today, blah, blah, blah. So we have this sort of integrated online approach, and we'll work that out in the meeting as well, like what's going to work well online, how should we time it, should it go out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, like which platforms will suit that story the best? Because they're all different. Some of them have great pictures, which will suit Instagram better. Some's a copy piece, so we'll write an article and post it on our Facebook. That works quite well. All those kinds of decisions. And then also in that meeting, we're like, all right, what else have we got coming up this week? What can we do tomorrow? Sarah, you've been, making calls on such and such. Do you think we can get that up for tomorrow? Or have we got guests locked in for Wednesday? So there's a lot that goes on in that meeting, but there's a lot of good, like, intelligence sharing, and like that's where the team culture really develops and kind of permeates. Yeah.
How important is humour in the way you deal with stories?
Trying to find it wherever we can, but never force it. I'm not funny enough. It's part of the reason. But it's just like this. There's so much irony and comedy in the things that go on in our world. Like it's always there, and like there's always comedy in the text line as well. Like people love writing like funny lines that even on really serious topics can kind of diffuse things and like draw people in. And, you know, a really experienced TV producer I know has once told me that like comedy is the most efficient communicator because there's so many layers to what somebody's saying. So in a very few words, you can say so much whilst getting people laughing. So don't shy away from it. Like it's not important or informative or serious enough, because like comedy can be really informative in a very short space of time. So looking for those moments, and also just the little human moments when you've got a guest in, and you know, if something weird happens, you embrace it and like try and like you would in real life, you know. Yeah.
And just finally, Tom, what advice would you have to current aspiring journalists? These journalists are in their second year, so they'll be looking for employment in the not too distant future. It's a pretty dismal outlook. What would you say to them?
Yeah, my advice is don't get too hung up on, like, part of it is about getting a job, but actually the other huge part of like developing your career in the early stages is story. It should be story focused, making cool stuff. The reason I got my job at Triple J was because I did journalism in postgrad. I'd already did a completely unrelated degree earlier on. So I had some part-time work at the ABC, which is when I first met you actually. I had some part-time work as sort of at a production level in the ABC, and I was doing some postgrad at UTS in the evenings. And my assignments, I never saw them as assignments. I saw them as freelance articles or radio pieces. So I never did an assignment that I didn't try and get published. My first radio piece took me 2 days. I was like, no way, I'm just letting this go on student radio. So I called SBS and said, there's an Indigenous program, this Indigenous story, do you want to play it? And I got a call from the producer of that show saying, we'd love to, we can't. And I was just blown away that my story was going to get played on SBS. I was excited. And then for my investigative class, I did a piece that I then pitched to the Herald and it got published. And I turned my radio feature into a half hour for Radio National. No one inside the industry will put down the phone on you if you call them with a great idea. People will say they don't have freelance budgets or whatever, but if you've got something really cool, I reckon they'll find a way to work with you on making it for what could be like a really big name program. So you know, I don't want to invite a deluge of calls to our program necessarily, but like if a second or third year student said, I've got access to this amazing story, do you want me to make it for you? We'd probably say, you're right, that is something that would really suit our show. We can't pay you, but like we would work with you. If you got that interview, we would help you find a way to package it up into a good story and work with you. And that's how it can start. So I reckon it's really good to focus on stories and ideas as much as it is important to focus on finding positions as such, because the industry thrives on stories. You know, that's the bread and butter of it. So if you're coming up with great story ideas, then you're off to a really good start. But just get them out, get them published, think about the best outlets for them.
Tom Tilley, thank you.
No worries.